Friends, first off, if you hear the air conditioner come on, we just have to deal with it because it is supposed to be, which it probably is very close to, 97 degrees in Atlanta today. And I'm feeling it. I'm feeling the heat. So we can't turn the air off. With that said, I'm sure that you have seen, because I've seen it on Instagram, the New York Times came out with their 100 best books of the 21st century recently. And I have thoughts. I definitely have thoughts about this. So I am a big book list person. I like to explore lists. I like to kind of see what's on them, how they got developed. I make my own lists. And I was really intrigued by this. So first off, I think we need to look at and acknowledge the limitations of this list. And with many of the lists that I've seen, just book lists in general, they're gonna have limitations. For this one specifically, the New York Times is an American publication. It is not always inclusive of many marginalized identities. And we don't really have a good sense of the people who voted on this. Now, I do know from the New York Times article, it says that 503 specifically, 503 novelists, nonfiction writers, book critics, and book lovers voted on this. We have we really don't have that much knowledge of how they voted, what their demographics were. So we're gonna take it as it is. And I just kind of wanted to share my thoughts on it. I will say, this is all in fun, and these are just my opinions. I do read a good bit of literary fiction, which seems to be the majority of the fiction that's on this list. I don't read as much nonfiction anymore, so I didn't have a lot of nonfiction that I had read on this list. There was a good number of translated works, and I do enjoy translated works. I don't read them as often as I'd like to. So with all that said, I first want to talk about the ones that I have read. I think I read 12. I'm going to put a graphic up here that has the covers of the books and then just go through them pretty quickly, letting you know if I liked them, read them, DNF'd them, what have you. All right, so the first one was at number, and this is also going backwards, the way that the New York Times released the list. They released 20 a day for 5 days. Number 93 was Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. That came out in 2014. This book is one of my favorite books of all time. Let's do a reread for sure. Another favorite book of mine was at number 77. That's An American Marriage by Tayari Jones. That came out in 2018. Then number 76, Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin, came out in 2022. I was not a big fan of this book. I liked it. I didn't love it like the majority of people that I know loved it. I do like that this one is on the list for many reasons, disability related. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. Number 75 was Exit West by Mohsin Hamid. That came out in 2017, and I really did enjoy that one. Number 74 I also read, and that is Olive Kitteridge by Elizabeth Strout. That came out in 2008. Unpopular opinion, I'm not a huge Elizabeth Strout fan. I don't know why, the writing just doesn't work for me. When I hear people describe her writing, it sounds like it would. I've read a couple of her works, and it's just not, she's just not for me. I do remember giving Olive Kitteridge 3 stars because I really did like the main character. Number 68 I read, it's The Friend by Sigrid Nunez. That came out in 2018. Then at number 57 was one of the nonfiction that I have read, and that was Nickeled and Dimed by Barbara Enright. That came out in 2001, and I'm pretty sure I read that back in 2001. Pretty sure my dad made me read it to understand American economy, which it was impactful, that's for sure. Number 39 is A Visit from the Goon Squad by Jennifer Egan. This came out in 2010. I DNF'd this book. I could not get into it. Yeah, I don't remember. I usually don't DNF unless I get 50 to 100 pages or if there's something very problematic. I don't remember it being problematic. I just couldn't get into it. Let's see. 15 is another favorite. That was Pachinko by Min Jin Lee. It came out in 2017. Don't let the thickness of that book scare you away. It is a great book. Number 13, The Road by Cormac McCarthy, came out in 2006. I read it, did not like it, which is surprising for me because I do like dystopian. Did not love that book. Number 11, The Brief Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde by Juno Diaz, 2007. I read the book. I think it was for a book club. I didn't like the book. I don't get the hype about the book either. And then number 7 was another favorite, The Underground Railroad by Colson Whitehead. That was published in 2016 and a book I think every American should read. So those are about 12 that I read on the list, and I thought about going through the books to see which ones I wanted to read, but honestly, there's a lot on here that I want to read. So what I want to do is just kind of give you some of my initial thoughts about the list, and then we're going to talk about the ones that I own that are on the list that I have not read yet. So here's some of my thoughts on what I felt like was missing. I also did read some opinions from other folks that I follow, and some of them are things that I agreed with as well. So Khaled Hosseini is not on the list. He wrote The Kite Runner and 1,000 Splendid Suns, in addition to other works. I read The Kite Runner. I own 1,000 Splendid Suns. I have not read it yet. Hugely impactful read on a part of history from Afghanistan that we don't know a lot about. The only thing we know about is really what has been said in the news, which we know is not always the most accurate. Maya Angelou is not on the list. Now, I did go back because I thought, okay, maybe she didn't publish anything in the 21st century, but she did. She started publishing in the 1960s through her death in 2014, I believe. So I'm not really sure why. She did publish things in the 21st century, so that to me is kind of an oversight. Another book I felt like was missing is The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks by Rebecca Skloot. This book highlights a lot in the American medical establishment, and I think really shows the disparities between white and black families, and it's taught in schools. It's important. Between Two Kingdoms is a beautiful memoir that is by Sulika Jawad. And what I think is important about that is she highlights her life as a early 20s. I think she was 21 when she was diagnosed with cancer. And cancer is such an impactful disease in the world that her memoir speaks to a lot of things that many people deal with. And that's something I thought was missing. Notes on Grief by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. It touches on not only her personal grief of losing her father, which many people deal with the grief of losing a parent. It also talks about grief during the pandemic. The pandemic was very important in our history, our medical history, our family histories. Very few families, I don't know any, that weren't impacted by COVID-19 in some way. And a lot of the experiences surround grief. So yeah, that's another one I think is very important. Invisible Kingdom. I realize that I'm more aware of this than many people that don't have chronic illnesses. Invisible Kingdom by Megan O'Rourke. The numbers are kind of all over the place with how many people experience chronic illness. I've seen numbers from 1 to 3 adults globally, and then anywhere from 13% to 50%. But the point is that chronic illness impacts many people. And even if you are currently not dealing with a chronic illness, you may develop one. And I personally really enjoyed and could relate to Founded Informative, The Invisible Kingdom. Having any kind of disability type memoir on the list would more directly reflect and include a part of the population that wasn't as included in the other picks. Which another one might have been Disability Visibility by Alice Wong, which is an anthology of essays written by people with disabilities and represents the wide spectrum of people with disabilities. There are a couple authors that weren't on the list that I was kind of surprised by. One of them is Margaret Atwood. She has a long catalog of work, and from fiction to nonfiction poetry. So that was surprising to me. Roxane Gay, who I think really gives an insight to the political climate that we've seen over the last 20 years that not many people write about. There weren't a lot of Indigenous works on the list, if any. I don't remember if any were on there. Authors like Tommy Orange or Louise Erdrich, who both have very well-received, well-loved novels. And yeah, so those would have been options as well. The ones that I have that I haven't read yet, that's what we're going to talk about now. Actually, I'm currently reading two, and I don't have them there. I'll put a picture. So I am reading Middlesex by Jeffrey Eugenides. Not loving it, but not DNFing it yet, but that's one of them. And then the other one I'm currently reading is The Year of Magical Thinking by Joan Didion. I am reading that one as well. So let's go through the ones that I have that I haven't read. So number 95 was Bring Up the Bodies by Hilary Mantel. This came out in 2012. This is the second in a series. And where was the other one? Wolf Hall was in the top 10. Wolf Hall was number 3. I don't own Wolf Hall. Wolf Hall is the first in the series. So I need to get my hands on a hard copy of Wolf Hall. I do have number 2 and number 3 in this series. Number 90 is The Sympathizer by Viet Thanh Nguyen. This won the Pulitzer Prize as well. This one is about disability, and so this is really, I'm glad this is on the list. This was number 67. This is Far from the Tree by Andrew Solomon. Parents, Children, and the Search for Identity. This is on my hope to read for the Big Book Summer Challenge, because it's a big one. So that was number 67. Number 64 was The Great Believers by Rebecca Mackay. I have started this before, and it just happened to also, it was very similar to a book I was reading. I was further along in, and so I put this to the side so I didn't get the stories confused. But this is also high on my list to get to. Number 46, these things are so heavy. The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. I actually haven't read anything by Donna Tartt, and this is also on my maybe might get to for the Big Book Summer Challenge. Number 33 and number 30. So number 33 is Savage the Bones by Jesmyn Ward, and 30 was Sing Unburied Sing by Jesmyn Ward. I was very happy to see she actually had 3 works on the list. Another one, the other one that she had on was Men We Reaped, which I think is her memoir or a nonfiction. And I have read one Jesmyn Ward book. I need to read more. I want to read more for sure. Her most recent, Let Us Descend, was my favorite book of last year. Then we had, at 24 is The Overstory by Richard Powers. This is also, I think, a Pulitzer Prize winning book. Yeah, I think this won the Pulitzer Prize as well. Another Pulitzer Prize winning book is number 16, The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay by Michael Chabon. I've heard a lot of great things about this, and I am very excited to read it. I've owned it for many years, so I don't know why I haven't read it yet. Then we have, let's see, what number was this? Number 10 was Gilead by Marilynne Robinson. This was another Pulitzer Prize winning book, and one that I really want to get to. This is the start of a series or companions, I think. Another that is very highly recommended is Never Let Me Go by Kazu Ishiguro. And then number 4, and this is the highest one that I had, is The Known World by Edward P. Jones. I just have a hardcover. I don't know what happened to the dust jacket. I will put a picture over this. So that's kind of, those are, I think, about 14 books that I have that were on the list that I haven't read yet. Those were kind of my thoughts on the New York Times 100 best books of the 21st century. And above all, we need to realize that we're only, a fourth of the way through the 21st century. So yeah, there's gonna be a lot more amazing works to come out. What on the list, did you look at the list? Are there any on the list that you really loved that I haven't mentioned? Are there ones that weren't on the list that you feel like should have been? Let me know in the comments. I'm really curious to find out what you thought of the list, or if you even pay attention to the list. I know a lot of times Goodreads does their Goodreads Awards every year, and to me that always just seems like a popularity contest, which honestly, that's really what Goodreads seems to do, is you definitely see the most popular books or the most talked about books. And there's definitely a call for lists like these for children's books, I think. We didn't see, that I am aware of, and like I said, I haven't read many of these books. I've heard of most of them. We didn't see any YA or middle grade or children's books, and it's probably because that would have just been too much and too daunting of a list, and in their own right deserve their own list. So I'm just curious what you thought about the list. It was cool to see everybody's Instagram posts of, I've read this many, I want to read this many. Yeah, so let me know your thoughts. I hope y'all are having a great weekend and have a great week. Stay cool wherever you are, or warm if you're experiencing winter right now, and I will talk to you very soon. Bye.